I think you could still have a big market approach to doing things in a smaller community.
I can't wrap my head around everything that you do.
I like the adrenaline rush that directing gives you.
That's a quarter of a century, everybody.
The band's called Twisted Chrome.
Nobody talks to you about that in journalism school, do they?
I don't think so.
An inside look at the people in front of and behind the cameras at NTV on this episode of Inside NTV.
Welcome to another episode of Inside NTV, where we meet with current and former NTVers to talk about them and the job and what they're up to now. And we're taking the episode on the road this week, and I am in the hallowed grounds of the Denny household.
Oh, yeah. Hallowed. Yeah.
Yes.
Welcome.
Yes.
Glad to see you, my friend.
Seth Denney,
Yes.
American legend, anchor extraordinaire. Any other fun titles I can give you?
Those aren't my titles. I'm like, who?
Painting aficionado. How about that?
You can throw that in, I guess.
I'm excited for this. Seth's my buddy, so that's important too. But Seth, you started NTV when?
I started in 99. It was spring of 99, the May of 1999.
And you left in 2021, correct? So that was 22 years at NTV, straight through. You and Colleen were the longest tenured anchor team, maybe in Nebraska history.
Boy, it's got to be right up there, I think. And so Colleen was there for a couple years when I started in 99. Then she went off to New York City. And I stayed there, and then she came back then in the mid 2000s, and man, it was a good run and great place to work for sure. Had a lot of fun and wonderful people,
What are you up to now?
Okay, yeah, it's a good question. So I stepped away, like you said, 2021, and during from 99 all the way through 2021, we've owned and operated this paint contracting business where we paint homes and businesses and whatever all across central Nebraska and basically based out of Kearney. So I did that all the way through my broadcasting career, and then I just stepped aside from broadcasting and continued to run the business.
And 2 full-time jobs, essentially, for a long time.
That's right. It was, you're right, Wags. It was getting up in the morning at 7, running the business till potentially 2 o'clock, showering, getting down to the TV station by 3, and then doing that thing,
There might have been a time or two that I saw you come in your paint gear to get a camera and a tripod to go shoot vital signs.
That happened a lot. I would go to the station if I was painting around the station, somewhere at Axtell, Minden, whatever, get the gear, take it home, shower, and have the gear and go zip off to Good Sam or Kearney Regional and do the story.
And we're in your house. Nobody else is home, I don't think. But you have a lovely wife, a great family with kids and the whole deal. And you had to do so much work while you're also trying to raise a family.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That was absolutely. And there's give and take to that, as you know, Wags. And it's, I certainly, this TV station was great for me. And that I got to go, actually, Josie is home. She's a UNL student. She's downstairs studying her summer classes.
Nice. Yes.
But I could watch her games and the older 2 kids' games, and the station really was great about saying, hey, you've got a family life too. And sometimes you'd burn a little vacation to go to an away game or whatever, but they were fabulous about it. So, and being a family man, you need that. You don't want to miss that. Because I ended up missing some things just because of my workload, but that's just the way it was. But it was, in general, a good way to do it.
And one of the harder things that people at home may not think about when they're watching the news is the shift that you have. And even without the painting stuff in the morning, it's a evening shift. I mean, the 5, 6, 10, and now the 9 and the 6:30 and all that stuff. But those are the most watched shows.
Yeah.
So you're one of the 2 main anchors. You're going to be on those shows. So you're working until 10:30, 11 o'clock at night.
Yeah, and that's peak family time. When I remember when the kids were little, I'd maybe zip home and grab dinner. But then, they're hanging out when they were little with mom until, it's time for bed and everything. So a lot of that was without me there, but that's just part of the gig. And you learn to develop the ebb and flow of that family time and all that stuff in different ways. So it was good. It was a good way to do it.
I just want to make sure I mention this. So Seth's last newscast is on the NTV News YouTube page. So when you're done watching this, make sure you go ahead and check that out. That's marvelous. It was all put together by Colleen.
It was great.
And it's a fun watch. Even 3 years later, it's still really neat to see all that stuff and all the people who are willing to talk about you and how much they enjoyed working with you and what you meant to them along the way. So that's worth your time checking that out if you haven't seen that.
It was cool. That was a fun night. And yeah, Colleen did a great job reaching out to all these people. And I think she might have bribed them to say nice things about me. The guy from Canada that we had
the mayor of Winnipeg.
The Winnipeg guy. And it was funny. He was on there. By all means, check that out. I think I might do it too. So.
Not everything was probably roses and perfect things at work, I'm sure.
No.
What was maybe some of the harder stuff that you had to deal with? Whether it was a tough story that you had to cover or, there's a lot of stuff as an anchor that you have to read that you probably rather not even have happen, period, let alone have to talk about.
Yeah.
What was maybe some of the tougher things that you had to deal with?
Yeah. And before we had kids, before Melissa and I had kids, I'd read anything. I could leave it at the station, whatever, but it didn't bother me at all. But then once you have kids and you start to read some of the horrific stories that are part of the news, something happens and then you start to put your mind around how did this affect little ones involved or a house fire, how did that affect little ones or something a lot worse than that. And then you do start to think about that. That was kind of tough for a time, but you learn to compartmentalize and deal it with it that way. I'll tell you, COVID wore me out, and we've talked a little bit off camera, obviously, about that. COVID wore me out just because there was such a stoppage in the free flow of ideas. It seemed like we were all encouraged to march a certain way, and if I remember one story I did, Wags, on vital signs. And it was an alternative method. Whether it was right or wrong, I don't know. But it was an alternative method to treating COVID patients. And it was a local, I want to say, chiropractor.
I remember this.
And I got beat up like crazy. And that guy got beat up like crazy online just about it, and emails and Facebook and whatever. And it was like, what's going on here? Where's the free flow of, hey, you don't have to take this as gospel. Okay, this is just one guy's method of treating a patient that you may disagree with, but it's also out there. So I got wore out with some of that stuff. And, there's other things that, and we've talked about this too, when tensions would flare in a competitive newsroom, some of those things, and you look back are funny now.
Yeah.
But during the time, quite stressful. So, but man, you look back, it was a good run and something new every day, something new to look forward to. And I can remember I'll tell this story. This is one of those tense moments. News director at the time was Mark Balmer, great guy, hired me at NTV. And we were having a election night, and the election night was not going well for NTV News. It was just one of those nights, and we couldn't get the dang graphics going. We couldn't get anything on it. So my tension was going up, and I could tell Colleen was getting a little stressed out because my tension was getting going, and I knew Balmer had to be upset about stuff too. And then as the night went on, we had an interview run long, and I'm like, cut the interview, let's go to something else. And he was upset at me afterwards. I was upset at him, and Jen Jelkin and Colleen had to separate us. It was just, looking back at it now, I laugh, and Mark laughs too. And he apologized later, and I'm thinking I probably should have apologized about that. But just stuff like that, it's just fun.
Well, what's amazing is I had a chance to work with you for 7 years.
Yeah,
I don't remember you being angry. I can't imagine you getting to that point.
Oh yeah, I know. And I don't know what was grinding my gears so much, but it was one of those rough nights that we've all had in broadcasting.
I've been told by one one of my former news directors that said that you don't win election night, you try not to lose election night.
Bam, and survive it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that news director was right on. I mean, it's just so much coming right at you. A lot of numbers, and then you've got live shots going here, there, everywhere, and something's bound to go wrong.
What's the weirdest thing to go wrong that you've ever?
Oh, wow. Weirdest thing to go wrong. It was, let me think about that. You know, it was off camera. This was at the old KHAS.
Okay.
KSNB.
Yeah.
And I was working there when I was in college, and I was the only one in the newsroom because it was the weekends, and I was doing weekends. I was 21 years old, 20 years old maybe.
Wow.
Noticed a country mouse running around the newsroom, and I was pecking along there on the typewriter, and I kept my eye on that little mouse because it's out in the country, you know, obviously, just out north of Hastings. And talk about weirdest thing to go wrong. I felt something on my ankle, ran right up my leg.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, typewriter goes flying. Guy comes in for master control. Seth, what's wrong? But you're white, you know. Well, there's a mouse that ran right up my leg.
Oh
So,
dear.
on air though, what was the weirdest thing? I don't know. There's so many you could write a book about them, you know. But I'd have to think on that one.
I'm just trying to think of like funny stuff. I mean, we have obviously technical things go wrong here and there that's not funny. That wouldn't necessarily be a topic of conversation.
One of the funniest was Kent's deal with Dave when Dave's wife was pregnant. And I think this was on the last show. I think we had that on there too. So Dave Greek sitting there doing the sports, and he's on call. Basically, the missus is having the baby. And he's got his phone, and Colleen made mention, right? Your phone could go off at any time. Yeah, it could go off at any time. During the crosstalk, Kent was off to the side and hits send, right? And then he, like a phone's ringing. Oh, here we go. And then he sees it, says, Kent, what are you doing? So
great television.
It was great television.
I was in the booth for that. I was producing that show, and that, like, as a producer, you want everything to go the way you planned it, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot better sometimes when it doesn't.
Oh, yeah.
One good example, that was probably the best example, but another example that you'll enjoy that I remember is at some point I put a kicker in, and the kicker is the last story. Usually it's something fun for the anchors to talk about. And it was something about Brock Lesnar. Because wrestling, why not?
Yeah.
And I throw that in there, and I put Colleen in, because as a producer, you're picking who's reading, and you assign stuff. And I have Colleen reading the first sentence, and you reading the bulk of the story. Colleen goes ahead and reads the first sentence, no problem. We get to video, and here comes Seth's turn. And Seth doesn't read what's on the teleprompter. Seth instead decides, all right, Wags, just because you put it in there doesn't mean I have to read it. And you just took a great big whatever to the whole story. And I think Colleen might have been afraid that I was going to be mad. I thought it was hilarious.
Right.
Like, did I want to run the story? Cool. But I got something way better than that. It was fantastic.
Oh, that was great. I do remember that. Yeah. Sometimes the ad lib gets going, and it's just like, oh, this is where it should be going.
Yes.
You know?
I didn't realize we even had it on our YouTube page. Again, another thing to go check out afterwards. You doing play-by-play on Steve milking a cow.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's right. Now, that's been years ago, right?
I don't think it was that long ago.
Really?
Yeah, I think that may have actually been 2021.
Okay. At the state fair?
Yes.
Okay, I got you.
Because like John
right.
Vanderford from 1011 was up first.
That's right.
And you coerced the official to get Steve to go sooner so we could get it on television.
Now, I need to dig that one up because I do remember that now. That was great. Yeah, live shot. And that was my live shot for that night. That was my assignment. I needed to go to the barn there and have Steve milk the cow. You're
doing play-by-play of a cow milking.
Yeah. Hey, hit the big time.
So your big segment that you would do every week was Vital Signs.
Mm-hmm.
What made you choose. I'm assuming you had to choose. Maybe it was assigned to you. But over time, I think you became very interested in the medical topics.
Oh yeah.
What drew you to the whole vital signs thing, doing the once a week medical stories?
Just the effect it would have on folks that would watch. I mean, I remember, again, Mark Ballard, our previous news director, did a kind of a study that this is what people want to see, whether they're reading a magazine back in the day or read the newspaper or watching TV. This is health stories affect families. So I took an interest in it and jumped on that right away. And then I would go through various story ideas, look at on various sites and feel like, how would this affect, a farm family in Nebraska or somebody that lives in Kearney or Grand Island? And sometimes it'd be a hot story of the day, of the week, or other times it would just be something different that other people were talking about. And I developed a Rolodex, as it were, of people to reach out to, and they were great with doing interviews, and so it went well. Yeah.
A behind the scenes conversation that we had that I knew I wanted to bring up here. We talked, I've been in this market for going on 17 years. You obviously, you worked in Hastings for a little bit during college. You worked at Canopy for a few years, where the ladies at the hair salon still love you.
Really? Good.
I'm sure they do. At least the last check they did. And then over 20 years at NTV. So you've been in this area pretty much that entire time. You're
Yes,
in Nebraska. You're a Nebraska native, born in Lincoln. You were in Grant and McCook, all that stuff. But you could have went somewhere else.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I don't want to go into too much, but there's a possibility maybe at some point in your NTV tenure you could have went to a bigger market. You could have went to another city, made more money, did whatever. But I remember we talked about the difference of, some people want to do the run up the ladder as far as markets go, and that's fine. But there's also something to being where you're from or finding a place you like and staying there.
Yeah.
And the whole, you can make more money, but how much does that work out to when the bills get higher?
That's
in
exactly
a bigger city.
Yeah, you're right.
What went through your mind when you're looking at, or maybe even being courted by bigger stations and bigger markets, and you've got your family here or you're from here, and what made your decision to stay at NTV and stay in Nebraska?
Yeah, it's been a long time ago now, but yeah, there was a time when a lot younger, and we had opportunities to go. I remember the kids were little. Our two oldest were little, and I had a agent. I signed with an agent out of Pittsburgh.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And she was great, and said there were opportunities out there. I interviewed in New Orleans to do a morning show at an NBC affiliate there, and I also interviewed in Denver at what was the WB then, a weekend anchor. And both really good opportunities, and I was into it. I wanted to climb the ladder, but I was at the point when that Denver thing came in, and it was an offer that I was like, man, do I really want to? We lived in Minden at the time. The children were, like I said, little, and yeah, it's a bump in pay and everything, and it would have been propelled me on the ladder a little bit to move on, and who knows where after that and all that stuff. But I was kind of like, I don't feel good about pulling the kids and the missus and moving to Denver, moving to an apartment and kind of start over and just have somewhere to move to every how many years, whatever. When in fact we were happy right here in Nebraska. Her family is here, my family's here, and it's a great place to live and raise a family. So that was a big part of it. It was kind of hard to get my mind around because so much of getting into broadcasting is the next spot, you know. And so that was kind of changing my thinking a little bit. And that helped me out a little bit inwardly because I was constantly looking to get to the next place. So that was kind of it. It was a family deal. And I felt like the Lord kind of just had us here for a reason. And it was, and we were happy. And sometimes you don't screw with happy. You know what I mean? If you're happy, what are we doing? So it's been, and I look back on it now, and people say, well, Seth, you wish, what would have happened if you would have climbed the ladder or whatever? And I don't think about that. It's just like I stayed here. I did the news thing here. It was great. It was fun, and that's that.
And I think I can say that it's decisions like that, and Colleen being there as long as she is, and for Kent having been there as long as he was, and Dave being there as long as he is, and Steve White being there as long as he is.
Yeah.
I think the whole combination of that really laid the foundation and the pillars of NTV, because you have reporters that come and go every 2 or 3 years or whatever, and producers that come and go or whatever. But when you have that solid base of veteran talent that people like and they want to hear and that know what they're doing, so they can support those younger people that come in and make that transition easier for somebody out of college from New York or whatever, makes the TV station that much better.
Yeah, I think you're right. And you named some names right there that have been there for years. You think it's about Steve White, and Steve for a long time has been the best reporter in this market for a long, long time. And it's just because he's been here. He's a smart guy. He's very good, but he's been here. People recognize if he's got the story, this is probably going to be really well done. I better watch, and it's been that way for a while. And then, of course, Kent and Colleen and Dave, I mean, they've chosen to make this area their home.
And to add on to that list, I mean, I've been in the market for 17 years, and I say that as a reference point because Tim Wright's been at NTV longer than I've been in Nebraska.
Yeah.
Sarah Kirkley has been in the market for essentially the same amount of time I have.
Yeah.
So, again, Sarah's been at NTV since I did this interview with her, and I remember, I think, 14. So,
sounds right.
So she's been there as long as I have. I think she's at 10 years.
Yeah. That speaks a lot to the station. That speaks a lot to, I mean, there again, Sarah's tremendous. And Tim Wright has chosen to make his home here and is raising his family here. It just does a great job. So, I mean, it's good for this station for sure. Absolutely.
And once you decided to move to Kearney, he became the unofficial mayor of Minden because you left.
Absolutely. Handed him the key. And there you go.
He gets to MC all the Minden stuff now since Seth got out of the way.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I heard you mention the Lord. So I had a conversation like this with Matt Schick, who's fantastic, former NTVer over at ESPN now. Your faith drives you probably more than most people that I know. How does your faith, how does your relationship with God affect what you have done in your career up to this point?
It's a good question. I think it guides everything that I do. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not some perfect Christian by any stretch, but the grace that Christ has shown me means everything to me because I have struggles in my life and I have mountains to climb but I know my Lord's always with me every single day. And when I got into TV, that was part of the reason I felt like the Lord gives us each gifts. And that was one of the gifts he gave me when that light came on, I liked the performance angle of it. And then I wanted to also be a good example for Jesus as someone who's in the public light. And I tried to do that in my time at NTV and on television and everything. And that's one of the reasons I thought the Lord kind of wanted me there. And I got some speaking engagements because of that, to share about my faith. And that played a lot into my role into being in TV, and it was good. Now, how does that change as a paint contractor? It changes a little bit, but not a lot. I meet with people all the time, and it's how I convey who I am and who I serve the Lord, in a daily basis, how I treat my employees, and with love and kindness and the way Christ would want me to. So it's the most important thing in my life. And again, I got a long way to go, but that's part of the good thing. And I'm not going to turn this into an altar call here, but that's part of the good thing about the Lord is that the whole thing about the gospel is the forgiveness of sin, and we've all sinned, and we all have issues, but he's always right there to pick us right back up. So it's been a huge thing in my life for sure.
And when you talk about things that maybe rub you the wrong way, that you read in horrific news stories when you were anchoring, I'm sure that helped to get you through some of that stuff.
Oh yeah,
especially when it started registering more when you're having kids and raising a family and going, oh, this is rough.
Yeah.
I mean, we talked about this already, but there are bad stuff that you would have to read as a news anchor.
Yeah.
It's not all, let's hit the road with Dave Greek and his trailer of clothes and go cover
Right.
Oklahoma.
Which was fun.
Yes,
We had a
it was
great
very
time.
fun.
Yeah.
But it was a lot of tough stuff to have to talk about too. So
Yeah, certainly was. But yeah, you're right. That the Lord helps you, man, compartmentalize that and know that He certainly has a plan for me to read those stories and to still tell the story of what's going on, but yet represent Him.
you could still do the whole news anchor thing.
I don't know. You think so? Would they let me wear this?
Well, they let me wear this.
That's
so,
true. Yeah, that's true. You've been on a while now too.
Yeah. I mean, if they can put up with me being on TV, they can welcome you back in.
Oh man, I tell you what, it was fun, and we did some. I was thinking the other day after you reached out, I thought, man, some of the stories we did through the years. I mean, the Ann Sluty story. Are you familiar with that one?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they did a movie on that,
Mm-hmm.
made for TV movie. And I mean, just the time Clinton came to Kearney, we covered that, and the Kearney Regional Medical Center when that first started. It was a huge story.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like so many big things like that. So it was always something new, always something interesting, for sure.
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, we could talk for hours.
Oh yeah.
But you have a life. You have painting to do.
That's right, by golly. You want to help today? Those look like good painting clothes.
I think I got to get back to the station.
Just like that. Right?
Seth, thank you so much. I appreciate this, and into your humble mansion here at up in Denny Place.
Humble mansion on Denny Place. Stop. Yeah, something like that. It's been a pleasure. Thank you for coming over.
No, absolutely. And as I told him when I first got here, it was my excuse to hang out with Seth. So.
It's been great. Great. Anytime.
Thank you, everybody, for watching, and make sure to tune in again next week here on the NTV News YouTube channel for another episode of Inside NTV.